have a relatively bad reputation. And whether that's engineered or not, it is the way it is. But Bitcoin itself is a very, 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 very good idea. If you guys would just start using it. Just fucking use it. Just fucking use it. All right? If you would just start using it, figure it out, you would see that it is the way to get out from under the thumbs of the banks. Okay? The reason Jesus whipped the money changers out of the church, well, they were in the church. That was the number one reason. And they were not supposed to be doing that in the house of God. But the reason he hated the bankers, well, he didn't. I guess I can't really speak for that because he hates sin. All right? But, well, let's just say that he did. And people can correct me on this if they'd like. But let's say that Jesus hated sin. And he hated the bankers. The reason for that was because of the interest that they charge, the monopoly money that they create, the fiat. I've explained this a billion times. You can listen to any mainstream or halfway intelligent economist like Mises or Hayek or Stefan Molyneux or Ron Paul or even Peter Schiff, though he's bothering the hell out of me when it comes to Bitcoin because I can understand at least part of the reason why he's so adamant about that, and that's because he has a very difficult time trusting people, and it's borne out to be a good idea for him to have difficulty trusting people with the way the Bitcoin ecosystem has been run thus far. It's a tragedy. It is a shame, and those jackasses like Jihan Wu need to stop frickin' doing what they're doing. They're paying for it one way or another, thank God, but anyways. Like I was saying, the reason Jesus whipped them out of there was because of the fiat that they were creating. Central banking is socialist, and it's total fucking nonsense. I try not to curse too much, but when I get frustrated with some things, I do it for emphasis, okay? And I am frustrated with the way the Bitcoin ecosystem is going right now. Now, mind you, other than that dip from 6,000 to 3,500, it's pretty standard for the Bitcoin ecosystem to operate in this way. And it's only about 10 years old, so you can accept it if you have any intestinal fortitude. But that drop from 6,000 to 3,500 was disgusting. And the simple fact that the general population not only refuses to use it at this point, or to understand it, but they're kind of burying their heads in the sand about it. And those who do use it aren't talking about it enough. Bitcoin is the path forward, at least until we stop using money altogether, which I guess anything is possible. We could stop using money within 30 years. I don't know. But as it stands, we're currently using money. And by the way, it is the love of money that is the root of all evil, not money itself. Money is simply a means to an end. It is not the end itself. Bitcoin will give you back your power. I've said it a billion times. I'll say it a billion more. So those doofuses out there, like Peter Schiff and Alex Jones, I love you, buddy, but you are wrong about Bitcoin. It is good. And I know you're probably just saying that to get people to start talking about it, which I'm grateful for, mind you. But Bitcoin is good. People need to use it. And if you see what's happening with Patreon, for instance, and other crowdsourcing or crowdfunding platforms, GoFundMe, for instance, you don't have to use those platforms. Just use Bitcoin. If everybody started using it, guess what would happen? Network effect, the price would skyrocket. Also, everybody in life needs to have a mission if you want to have any type of efficacy in your life. If you want to just sort of, live, Well, you're not really living if you don't have a mission. Yeah, well, I just answered my own question. You're not really living if you don't have a mission. So why not make that mission as broad and all-encompassing as existentially possible? What is the most broad and all-encompassing existential mission you could possibly imagine? Well, of course, it goes to God. That is to actually advance humanity. And how do you do that? You get us to have wonder, to have compassion, to have empathy, to have strength, to have hope, to have love. And that all means going to God. And ultimately, the mechanisms by which we will do that will be things like traveling to the stars, going to the very deepest depths of the ocean, searching the very deepest depths of our souls, and how much we can love one another. I mean, I love you guys, all right? But how much can we love one another? And the way we express that is through our suffering, because we don't trust one another on earth. It's a tragedy, but we don't. So the best way to express your love for others, just like Jesus did when he sacrificed himself on the cross, is the amount of suffering you'll go through. Now, if dying is off the table, thank God for most of us it has been. And if you look at the trends in the Western world, and really the world at large, number of homicides has plummeted over the last 100 or so years. We live in the safest era, the most peaceful era in human history by a humongous margin, if you look at percentage-wise. So if death is off the table, what are the most profound means by which you can show how much you love other people? And of course yourself, because if you don't love yourself, you can't love others. How much do you suffer? And that suffering, let's say that you're a cerebral person. The most profound suffering that you can get is psychological. Let's say that you are a spiritual person. The most profound suffering you can get is spiritual. Let's say you are, if you're a physical person, then the most profound suffering you can get is physical. Death is off the table because you can't suffer when you just die, True suffering is kind of drawing that out. Nevertheless, I don't like the idea of it, but it does show just how much you can love one another. So you have to have a mission, and then you have to have a mechanism by which you will execute that mission. All right? So in order to make it so that that mechanism will be adequate, you have to have a goal as well. So for instance, my goal was and still is to become an astronaut and get to space. And what is the greatest way in which I can suffer in order to show how much I love humanity? Not ever be allowed to attain that goal. Ever, 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 ever. No matter how hard I try. And because I love humanity so much, I never give up on it. But I never attain it. It is proof of your love. I know it sounds silly, but it's very... Maybe I'm narcissistic for saying this, but it is very high level. It's very deep spiritual things. I'm a very spiritual and cerebral person, so that's where my source of suffering comes from. Whenever I am made to not be able to accomplish... I'm also very action-oriented. So whenever I'm made to not be able to accomplish spiritual fulfillment, psychological, mental fulfillment, or action fulfillment. So I act. I'm very action-oriented. And if my actions never bear any fruit, then that's where I get the most suffering. At least when it's perceived. When my actions never bear any fruit in a perceptual way. They might to you guys, but I never see anything. So I'm making this video right now, or audio, because I'm action-oriented. And I have to do something to express myself, to try to make some type of difference in the world. And where do I get the greatest amount of suffering? Nobody watches it. Nobody listens.